Hello, world. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so good to be with all of you today. It is Tuesday, July 28th. We have a big guest in the Joy Virtual Studio today. Dani Pinter is speaking out. She is the attorney for the American victim in Romania, victim of the Tate Pimps. We're going to expose so many of their lies today and update you on the situation that is rapidly developing in the great state of Florida as they face extradition to the UK to face their crimes that they committed against so many victims, not only in the UK, but also in Romania and the United States of America. This is a big case, and I'm going to explain why in just a minute, but we're going to bring her in a moment. First, I want to say hello to all of you. Thank you for being with us today. We are live on Rumble, live on Twitter, live on Spreely TV, Roku TV, and Apple TV, every podcast platform you can imagine. We are live on Facebook and YouTube and X as well. If you like the show, please give us a thumbs up, a like, and join us in the comments of the show. This is how we grow that algorithm. And I want to say hello to everyone on the live chat today. Hey, bye-bye. Good to see you. Very first on the live chat. Zayada is with us today on the live chat. We have Futurez, Be My Valentine, CJP, Rumble, and Texas Gal Forever. Good morning to you, Texas Gal. As I mentioned, big show today. We're going to cut through the noise on one of the most important stories, not only in the country, but in the world, in my opinion. And mainstream news media on the left and the right keep getting it wrong, and they've been getting it wrong since 2022 and beyond. Andrew and Tristan Tate built an empire on manipulation, lover boy tactics, webcam porn, and what authorities are calling rape, child exploitation, and sex trafficking. I don't even believe that they built that empire. I believe that the empire was built for them by the same people who ran a protection racket for the Epstein empire as well, that criminal cartel, which I believe is behind so many of the awful things that we are dealing with today. That is why I believe that this case is incredibly important. It's a case that's been largely ignored by both the left and right-wing media. The left-wing media reporting in a very limited fashion, the right-wing media not reporting at all, and even an embracing of the Tate brothers by so-called conservative Christian outlets, mega platformers like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. It's beyond the pale to fathom. We have this organization that is running protection for the Tate brothers. Last year, even the Trump administration and the United States State Department stepping in on behalf of these degenerates for no reason whatsoever, but traveling to Munich, Richard Grenell, strong-arming Romanian officials to release the Tates, allow them to leave Romania and come back to the United States of America. None of it makes any sense, in the same way that nothing about Jeffrey Epstein made sense back in 2015 when he was given the sweetheart deal in the state of Florida, when superstar attorneys from the right like Ken Starr and superstar attorneys from the left like Alan Dershowitz traveled to Florida to protect the Epstein network, not just Epstein, but everything that his network represented, which wasn't just sex trafficking and exploitation of young women and girls. It was weapons trafficking and money laundering. It was involvement in the pandemic for profit, meetings with people like Bill Gates and heads of states, everything that has been revealed in the initial release of the Epstein files, which the Trump administration and the Biden administrations desperately tried to conceal. It is a criminal apparatus that I believe that the Tates are involved with, and I believe are protecting the Tates. This is why this story is so important. And this is why I think that most mainstream news media outlets are not reporting on it. I get asked often, Shannon, why do you keep reporting on the Tates? Well, that's the reason. And so we will pick up where so many of my colleagues on the left, the right, and in independent media refuse to report on. We'll take it up here, and we have one of the world's foremost experts on this case, attorney Dani Pinter. She is the chief legal officer and director of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation Law Center. Dani represents Jane Doe, the most persecuted American survivor who escaped the Tate Compound in Romania, told the truth to the authorities, and for that got sued and harassed and doxxed by not only Andrew and Tristan Tate, but their legal apparatus and the protection racket. People like Candace Owens doxing the victims, exposing the victims, and lying on behalf blatantly for the Tate pimps and their network. She's now fighting back with a powerful countersuit, and everything that's going down in Florida is impacting that. We're going to dig into the recent arrests of Andrew and Tristan Tate and the attempts to extradite them to the UK as more and more victims are coming out and more charges are being filed. We have all of the receipts linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. If you doubt Dani in any aspect of her testimony today on behalf of not only Jane Doe, but also the multiple victims of the Tate brothers and their cartel, you can just scroll down. Everything is sourced. Everything is documented. And we're going to set the record straight on the Shannon Joy Show today. They have been lying to everyone. Their attorney lies to everyone. They lie blatantly. They know they're lying. And they are using conservative media outlets, conservative influencer platforms, primarily on Twitter and conservative social media, to launder the dark character of the Tate brothers and lie for them. And it's absolutely outrageous. Not a word from Tucker Carlson, not a word from Candace Owens as they're being exposed, while the Tate brothers are being exposed for what they have done to women over the past 15 to 20 years. Some of these charges date back to the early 2000s and mid 2000s. So Dani Pinter has been featured in major documentaries. She is representing, as I mentioned, one of the most, if not the most persecuted victim of the Tate brothers. And she joins me today on the Shannon Joy Show to go over all of this, set the record straight. It's a big show, Dani, and you've been on this show before. I appreciate everything that you have done for not only Jane Doe, but also Mary Doe and the victims. You can follow Dani on Twitter. Her handle is at Dani B. Pinter on Twitter, and her organization is EndSexualExploitation.org. Dani, I want to start with this question. We're going to unpack everything. We're going to take our time, and we're going to set the record straight. I hope that you'll do most of the talking, but hopefully we can identify some of the major areas of misinformation, disinformation, and outright lies that have been coming from mainstream news media, and even more tragically, the Christian right and Christian news media. But first, I want to ask you, because everybody wants to know, are you an atheist, left-wing feminazi who just wants to go after the Tate brothers for their political positions and going up against the feminization of men? Because that seems to be their number one attack on anyone who stands up, speaks out, represents these victims, that this is just a part of a large left-wing feminazi movement that wants to crush masculinity and harp about toxic masculinity, et cetera, et cetera. Is that you, Dani, or
No, no, that's not me, Shannon. I am a Christian. I've been Catholic all my life. I went to Christian law school. If you do a little bit of Googling on my background, you're going to see nothing about my history is reflective of that interesting characterization. No, I've devoted my life and my professional career to, trying to protect kids online, advocate for those who've been exploited and trafficked, and that's what our organization does. We're nonpartisan, non-sectarian, but no, I don't think me or anyone in that organization could be characterized in that interesting way.
The reason that I ask you that, Dani, and it sounds like a silly question, but as I have been reporting on this story, I've been attacked, maligned, chided by Christian conservatives, both online, social media, people with big platforms, and even people that I know in my own life, like practicing Christians, who will say to me, "Listen, we might not agree like with everything they say, but these guys are going up against toxic masculinity. They're representing against the feminist movement in the United States of America and abroad that seeks to, diminish men. And we're going to give them a pass on everything because they're going after who we perceive to be the real bad guys. And that is the left-wing Democrats, apparatus here in the US and abroad. And that's been, in my opinion, the most impactful narrative and storyline that I've had to go up against since I started reporting on them. Your thoughts?
Well, the Tate brothers have discussed many times in like their videos, their podcasts, their courses, how to appeal to what people want to hear.
Mhm.
Andrew Tate has said many times that people will believe anything. You can just lie to people; they'll buy it. So I'll just point that out. Nothing about the Tate brothers is conservative themselves. They don't even identify as conservative. They're unmarried. They brag about having as many, baby mamas as possible and that they'll never be married. What's frustrating, because I've heard that narrative too, is that we can advocate the things we want without compromising our values. I think thinking that the Tate brothers are the only ones that can deliver, a message about traditional masculinity is short-sighted. There's plenty of great male leaders out there with integrity. And unfortunately, what the Tate brothers have said about themselves and their own behavior alone should disqualify them as spokespersons on these issues.
That always confused me because you only have so much political capital. You have only your reputation in this business, and the fact that so many major conservative outlets, major conservative platformers would use political capital to defend people who were degenerates in their own rights, in their own words, hundreds of hours of video, hundreds of hours of tapes, multiple victims, 3 continents. The fact that anyone would choose these guys to be the poster child just blew my mind. But it was true that the Tate brothers, before the scandal erupted in Romania, were heavily platformed on so-called conservative platforms. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, one of the first accounts that he reinstated was the account of Andrew Tate, also Tristan Tate, and he platformed them, retweeted them, and commented on their posts many times, which amplified their message. They were making as much as $50,000 bi-weekly, according to screenshots that were shared by Andrew Tate on X. So they were heavily compensated by Elon Musk and the Twitter corporation for their content. And they inked a $9 million deal, it was reported, with Rumble, which was also perceived as being a conservative leaning or independent leaning platform that platformed many, many Christians. So they had major deals with major platforms that really amplified their message. And that's really, from my perspective, why they got as big as they did. It didn't seem organic to me. It seemed as if they were created. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Andrew, even in his recent video, a video is released that he's saying he recorded before being arrested. It's very long, long interview. I mean, he describes how he went viral on these different platforms and how he engaged like his massive audience within his university to kind of trick the algorithm to flood it with clips, and it's the most outrageous content. So he talks about that. I don't know if you
Right.
can consider that organic. But it's fascinating kind of study of our times where there was a frustration of this so-called cancel culture, where there was too much policing of speech. At least that was a lot of the commentary, a lot of people's frustration. And then, as human nature does, there was this overcorrection and this swing where then it became, well, we have to accept all speech, or we can't even criticize someone's speech because then that's infringing upon free speech, which doesn't make sense, of course, because right, criticism is a part of your free speech exercise as well. So I think it's fascinating how the timing of all this and sort of the political atmosphere, just the societal touch point. It was also this really, that's when the new media exploded, right? There was a lot of, no more trust in institutions, a lack of trust in mainstream media. So it was kind of a perfect storm that the Tate brothers really capitalized on. And they knew what people wanted to hear. And so what was kind of disturbing is they were effective at delivering a certain kind of message many wanted to hear, but they would also launder in some more kind of shocking, problematic messages. And it was almost like they were grooming their audience and grooming society to accept some of these more extreme messages that, as you pointed out, would never normally be tolerated from a conservative Christian audience.
That was a shocker to me that they did seem to platform to this disaffected kind of conservative male population. And when you mentioned grooming them, I think that's exactly what they did. It was an attempt, I think, to legitimize the exploitation of women on multiple levels, the most extreme being them openly admitting that they were pimps, that their whole organization was devoted to tricking women using the lover boy method, lying and manipulating women, convincing these women that they were in love with them, moving them to places like Romania, isolating them from their families, frightening them into performing on OnlyFans and production of pornography, and then taking their money, not paying them, stealing their money, which these guys openly admitted multiple times in multiple videos when they explained what their organization was. And this is corroborated in much of the testimony of many of the women's and the victims who have now filed charges in both Romania and the UK. So I think that this was, a larger grooming operation to legitimize this Romeo exploitation, or the Romeo style or lover boy style of sex trafficking and sexual exploitation. I think this is a very important element that I'd like you to explain, because I've also had conversations with highly platformed so-called conservative Christians with major outlets who have said, listen, these girls want to do it. These girls want to get behind the camera. These girls want to make this money. They ask for it. And if they know they're being exploited and they want to be exploited, well, then what's the problem? And so this has also been permeating through conservative media outlets like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. And I think there's a big problem with that. I think they represented this new 21st century version of lover boy exploitation that no one really understands. And it's the same type of exploitation that a jury didn't understand when they dropped the charges of Sean Combs, when he was, very clearly exploiting and trafficking women. And this is important. Can you explain to the audience this method of exploitation of women and why it is so important that we understand what it is and that we understand the criminality behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you that the jury, I think they got it wrong with Sean Combs, and they were confused about what trafficking is and coercion and the elements. So I'll talk about the legal structure in the U.S., but just as a practical concern, law enforcement, any law enforcement agent or law enforcement professional who has been investigating sex trafficking, and this is whether it's domestic or abroad, will tell you that the primary way that traffickers entrap, ensnare, and force their victims to participate in the sex industry is through a version of this Romeo pimping or lover boy method. That's the primary means by which traffickers control their victims. And this is a it's a method that's actually even been taught. What's ironic is the Tate brothers, in their interviews, even with Candace Owens and I think Tucker Carlson, mentioned one of their mentors, someone they admire, named Pimping Ken. Pimping Ken wrote a book about how to use the lover boy method, how to trick women into, first identifying. So this is the method, is first identifying the right victim, and that, they use different words, they use different jargon, but what it boils down to is identifying someone with a vulnerability, identifying a woman that is vulnerable in some way, and then providing what, the need, like the need, and meet that vulnerability. So if they're seeking love, if they're financially vulnerable, if they don't have strong family ties, whatever it is that the victim needs, the trafficker provides that, fills that void, makes this person feel very special. So they create this emotional attachment, and then it's a bait and switch. They make false promises of what the relationship is or what they're working towards. In one of Andrew Tate's videos, he says, sell them a dream. You sell them a dream. He's like, you just make it up. I'm paraphrasing, but he says, just say, oh, look, we're going to get this house in Jamaica, whatever it is, sell them that dream, and then tell them, you're working for us. We're in this together. You're just doing this for a little while for us so we can achieve our dream. And that parallels the same kind of teachings that Pimping Ken talks about, which law enforcement have used Pimping Ken's book as a training manual for
Wow.
law enforcement officers to identify this. So this is well known with experts in the field. We understand this. We see this time and time again. And when you talk to the victims, you recognize it, you realize it. But it is our society. I really do think there is a grooming societal wide. We're dealing with a porn culture, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has access to the most graphic, most obscene, most hardcore, damaging, violent pornography available on your phone in seconds. And most people of my generation and below were exposed to this as children.
Right.
So this constant wave of pornography is desensitizing us. That even plays out in the studies. People who regularly watch pornography have higher, they report higher on like a mental health exam or psychology exam for psychopathy, and
Wow.
lower for empathy and viewing people as human beings, right? They don't. So I think we're seeing all of this play out, and the Tate brothers are a part of it. But I think, this combination of desensitization to this porn culture that we're living in, this
Right.
rise of the OnlyFans culture that's being sold to, college girls as, a perfectly reasonable way to pay your college career. They're
Right.
also, I think, lied to about all the risks and what that experience is really going to entail. And then combine it with a system of manipulation that ultimately defrauds and coerces the victims into engaging in this. From working in this field a long time, I'll tell you that most people in the sex industry did not have free choice. They may even think they had a choice because they knew they were starving, and so they chose to do this to feed themselves.
Right.
But most of us would recognize that that's not free choice.
No, not at all. And it's a growing problem. I think the internet and the accessibility on the internet, especially targeted at young children, is incredibly disturbing to me. And it is desensitizing people to these types of atrocities. And it's a constant grooming method. And quite frankly, Elon Musk has been accused of allowing, these types of pornographic images and content on the platform for quite some time. We don't have to go into that, but it's really distressing. Especially, again, I go back to the fact that people like Elon Musk and Andrew Tate are elevated and celebrated in conservative Christian circles, which is just, it's absolutely insane. So these guys had the entire protection racket. They had left-wing news media pretty much ignoring their case, even though it happened during the Trump administration. Like, perfect opportunity for them to come up and just attack it and use it to attack the Trump administration. They didn't do that. They've had the protection racket of right-wing media and Christian media, and they've really been able to skate, allowed to leave Romania, come back to the United States of America. Something shifted in the past 6 or 8 months. Bombshell news just a couple weeks ago: arrested by U.S. Marshals in the state of Florida, facing extradition to the UK and a slew of new charges that have been leveled. It appears that the State Department has done a complete 180, Dani. Just a year ago, Donald Trump sent a special envoy to Munich to essentially strong arm, this was reported by the Financial Times, strong arm Romanian officials into allowing the Tate brothers to leave Romania, come to the United States of America, connections between Barron Trump and Don Trump Jr. to the Tate brothers. And at that point, a year ago, it looked like the full force of the US government was going to align behind these guys, which was extraordinary in and of itself. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, the State Department now saying not only will they not step in on behalf of the Tates, that was the most recent announcement, but it appears that they were likely involved and worked with officials in Romania and the UK to set the stage for this arrest and extradition. And it looks like it is going to happen. This is extraordinary. As someone who's been following this case, representing one of the victims, which we're going to get into her full story in just a bit. What are your thoughts on these new developments, and what does that say about where we're getting on this issue of sexual exploitation, these types of crimes, and the Tate case?
Well, I am so pleased that the DOJ did, cooperate with the UK to effectuate that arrest. I think that was the right thing to do, and we should be happy that, you talked about Epstein reflecting on these like well-connected people accused of really heinous crimes and getting away with it. It looks like it's not happening this way, right? It looked bad for a while. It was very confusing what was going on,
Right.
but they're in custody. So I think, we can all celebrate that as a win, and that this administration is doing the right thing with that. But it's also like it's very strange because you really can't, trust anything the Tate brothers say either, right? It was very confusing what help they were getting from who. Was it a few well-placed isolated friends? Did they overblow their connections? Did they overplay their hand? It's just it was never clear to me what was going on. The results obviously good, but another thing to point out, the Tate brothers have sued a lot of people. So you kind of mentioned, the mainstream media, how they reported on a lot. I'll just push back and say that some fantastic reporting has been done. A massive New Yorker article came out by Heidi Blake
Yes.
a couple weeks ago. If we could link that, I would encourage everyone to read that piece. It's extremely long, like crazy long, but it is a record of kind of everything that's been going on, because
Interesting.
I think part of what the Tate brothers have capitalized on is the confusion, the number of cases. There are multiple countries. Romania seems, very foreign to Americans.
Right.
They speak a different language. Many European countries speak English, write in English, not Romania. So they had a closed criminal system where even if documents were released, they were in Romanian. So the Tate brothers could misrepresent or give their spin of those documents. It was very hard to do your own research. So I think they also capitalized on that. And I think, it's interesting what the chilling effect was when the Tate brothers made it clear that they were going to be very litigious. What was the chilling effect on even, print media and journalism when powerful individuals go around suing detractors in a very big and public way? So it's been a very long and crazy road
Yeah.
to get where we are.
Let's go back in time a little bit, because I don't think, those who are watching right now who have had a peripheral interest in the Tate case, that haven't really explored it or looked at the reporting that has been done. I mean, you mentioned the New Yorker piece, which was stellar. I actually linked it to my show notes last week, but I will link it again as well. Dani, thank you for that. There was also a New York Times piece, I believe, that had dropped excellent reporting. I want to say 6 or 7 months ago. I was in contact with the journalists there, congratulated them, a really important story. But prior to the New Yorker and the New York Times, guys, nothing. There was some reporting, very shallow reporting from mainstream news media outlets, no reporting from the right. And Dani, I would say it was the heavy lifting done by you, your organization, Matthew Jury, one of the attorneys for some of the victims in the UK. Nathan Livingstone, who I actually think is the hero. I think Nathan, he is a filmmaker. He is an independent journalist out of Australia. He's been on my show 3 or 4 times. He was the one that began to go out and create videos that exposed the Tate brothers, exposed them in their own words. That he exposed the lying and the manipulation by Candace Owens and tragically Tucker Carlson. And he just kept putting out one video after another, going viral. Murdered by Crayons and a few other accounts on X were doing the heavy lifting for all of the major media outlets. And they were the ones, Dani, that got slapped with a massive lawsuit from the Tates. All right, going after them. They have had to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend themselves because they have to order or they have to answer these frivolous charges. Yeah. This is the epitome of lawfare, which Andrew and Tristan Tate scream about like stuck pigs all of the time. But can you speak to that? Because I don't believe that there would have been a New York Times piece or perhaps a New Yorker's piece if it weren't for in that gap when this story was going to go to its deathbed. You had a couple people, independents, that were just pushing this out. Your thoughts on all of that?
Truly, I think the efforts of those independent journalists that you mentioned can't be understated. I agree with you. I think without their good, hard work, I don't know where we would be because the Tate brothers are masters at PR. They knew how to spin this. And like I said, it was confusing, it was international, and hard for many people to understand. So without the good hard work of those individuals, truly, and the courage and the relentless, the tenacity, it really is astounding. And it's going to be studied. Like it was fascinating and honestly a unique kind of grassroots pushback against, a campaign to smear the victims, in my opinion, and to really confuse the public.
Right. Well, and I believe this is what leads me to believe, and you might not share this opinion, but this is why I believe that the Tates are involved in a much larger criminal network than anyone really understands. I believe that they were being protected. I believe they were being platformed. Yes, they are master manipulators. Yes, they are degenerates. Yes, they are vile characters. But I think that there was an organization behind them that was incredibly powerful. And that makes these new developments even more amazing, right? It shows that perhaps the organization behind the Epstein cartel can be thwarted and can be exposed and we can defeat them. And that's been my larger point. This is why I've been covering it for so long. People don't all agree with me on that, but that's why I think that this is even more important than people actually think. We're going to go to a quick break. We are with Dani Pinter today. She is the lead attorney for Jane Doe, the American survivor who escaped the Tate Compound in Romania, basically blew the lid wide open on all of this. I mean, that in and of itself is an extraordinary story. And we're going to tell that when we come back, along with other information about where things stand with the Tate brothers in terms of their extradition to the UK. But if you want to support Dani and her organization, please do. EndSexualExploitation.org is the name of her organization. Her handle on Twitter @Dani B. Pinter. And we're going to continue to follow this with Dani in just a moment. So keep it tuned right here, guys. We'll be back in a minute. By the way, we might have some time for some questions. So for everyone who is watching on Rumble right now, you're in the live chat, smash that thumbs up button. I want you to put your questions and comments in all caps on the live chat. If you have questions or comments about the larger context or the details of the case, or maybe some type of misinformation that you've heard on conservative media about the Tate brothers, Andrew and Tristan Tate, something that you've heard their attorney say that might be confusing you, this is your moment to ask one of the foremost experts on this topic, Dani Pinter. So we are going to be taking those questions on the Rumble live chat. So join that live chat, post them in all caps. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue with Dani Pinter. Keep it here on the SJ Show. All right, make sure that every time you shop at the satellite phone store, sat123.com. All right, make sure that every time you shop at the satellite phone store, sat123.com. Hey everyone, I just want to take a moment to thank one of my longtime friends, associates, my financial advisor, and a beloved sponsor of the Shannon Joy Show, Don Polano over at PCM and Associates. Don Polano, as many of you know, was the very first Shannon Joy Show advertiser almost 12 years ago, and he's been with us ever since. I trust Don Polano. He manages some of my assets and my retirement fund, and he's offering his services to all of you. He can take clients anywhere in the country and even across the globe over at PCM and Associates. And as you guys know, it is so important today. There's so much volatility and chaos. You need a human being, a person that you trust, and a person that shares your values. And that's Don Polano at PCM and Associates. So if you are looking for someone to help you manage your retirement or have investment advice, please consider calling Don Polano over at PCM and Associates. His number, 1-800-536-1368. That's 1-800-536-1368. And of course, you can go to pcmpolano.com. That is pcmpolano.com to learn about all of his services and get in contact with his team. Again, so thankful for Don Polano at PCM and Associates, and I think that you are really going to appreciate his services. So that number again, 1-800-536-1368 for a financial advisor that you can trust. You to our sponsors, if you are in the market for anything over at the wellness company, so your ivermectin, your Fenben, your pharmaceutical products, if you need telehealth, if you need an emergency kit, anything that you need regarding health, pharmacy, and nutraceuticals, go to twc.health/joy and use my joy promo code every single time. A lot of you guys have prescriptions that you get every single month. If you switch over to TWC, some people can get free prescriptions, which is amazing. They have a great program there for you, and which is absolutely amazing. And every time you buy, every time you get that prescription, you're reminding them why they advertise with the Shannon Joy Show. So make sure you go to twc.health/joy, twc.health/joy. I'm cutting my own commercials and I'm very bad at production, so bear with me. Listen, speaking of my advertisers and sponsors, Peter Schiff will be joining me not next week, but the week after on Monday for a very important market update. The markets are insane. The craziness in Iran, the opening and closing of the Strait of Hormuz, everything is upside down, topsy-turvy. And, gold and silver are going a little wacky too. In fact, he said today, he posted this out, and I agree with him. He said gold is down again today, along with tech stocks, trading just above the $4,000 support level. But the weakness in both the stock market and the U.S. economy, also the dollar, and the prospects for higher inflation and nominal interest rates are extremely bullish for gold and silver. He is recommending to buy the metals and the miners. And I agree with him. I think this is an opportunity for people to get into a safe haven asset that is now a tier 1 asset. It's the equivalent of currency that happened just in the last year as a hedge against the coming chaos. So as you guys know, I'm in everything, but I do believe that everyone needs a gold and silver strategy. And by going to Peter Schiff's website, you can be connected with one of the most consistent truth tellers about the economy for over 20 years. And this is from his website. He has a guarantee. He started Schiff Gold to provide precious metals to investors with a trustworthy and affordable way to buy. He didn't think that clients should have to choose between low prices and also quality services. So, he created Schiff Gold. They have among the lowest price bullion dealers in the world. They maintain their low prices by keeping their advertising costs minimal due to our status as a major high volume dealer. They also only offer products that you can trust, the most common and popular bullion products in the world. They don't have any high pressure sales. This is what he has to say about that. Other gold brokers will steer you to products that earn them greater commissions. But at Shift Gold, they have a zero tolerance policy for that behavior. He says they only hire gold bugs who truly care about helping customers diversify into sound money. Their goal is to help you find the right products and amounts for your individual portfolio. They have physical gold and silver. They can help you with a gold or silver backed IRA for your retirement, and they can even help you out people who don't have the amount of money necessary to make large gold purchases. They even have T-gold available so that people can buy a little bit of gold at a time, kept in custody for you until you have enough to justify that shipment. It's an amazing program, and it's getting so many young gold investors involved. So go to shiftgold.com/joy today to learn more. That's shiftgold.com/joy. It's time to get gold at a bargain, and we might not see these type of prices for some time. So if you are interested, head over to shiftgold.com/joy, and we will look forward to seeing Peter in just a week or so. All right, back to our guest today, Dani Pinter. She is the lead attorney for Jane Doe, the American victim in Romania. We're going to hear Jane Doe's story, also Mary Doe's story. She is one of the most persecuted victims of the Tate brothers. She has been attacked. She has been doxxed. She has been sued. She has been misrepresented and lied about by the Tate network, not only Andrew and Tristan Tate, but Candace Owens and even people like Tucker Carlson. And she's still fighting today. Dani, let's talk about your relationship and the story of Jane Doe, because it was her actions in Romania that I don't think anyone expected that led to the raid on the compound, which led to the charges, which led to their arrest, and basically broke this case wide open. There were already victims in the UK. There were allegations of victims in the US as well. But it was this story that really broke the case wide open. And it perhaps is why she is the most persecuted victim of the Tate brothers, in my opinion. But, I'll let you tell that story. But if we can talk about her experience as much as you can tell. And it's a good explainer on how they work, how they operate, and even more importantly, how they suppress anyone who seeks to hold them accountable or seeks to establish justice in terms of what they have done to victims. I'll hand it over to you for that description.
Sure. So, Jane Doe was an American from Florida. She met Tristan Tate when he came to visit Miami. They met online and then ended up meeting in person. And, she thought he was charming and she thought he was impressive. He was really successful. He was showing off as he does. And she thought, she felt incredibly special that he wanted to spend time with her and that he was interested in her. She felt, she said he made her feel incredibly special and she thought they were falling in love. So when he invited her to come to Romania to be with him, she was excited to go. And they paid for her ticket to get there. She flew over to Romania. And we're just going to keep this high level because we're going to be sensitive of the victims and the integrity of the cases. But just in general terms, she essentially, started seeing red flags and felt like things were not right from the beginning. She thought she was going to spend time with Tristan in Romania, that their relationship was going to develop. That was the purpose of her coming, that, she was a musician. She would, find work, play her music, grow her music career. But repeatedly, she's being, introduced to this webcam business and being asked if she wants to do it. And, you don't have to do it, but just think about it. And here's someone who does it. And all of the women are living in a house together and they're all seem to be working on webcam. And now she's in this house, right? And there's sex toys and they're staying up all night. And people, these women don't seem happy. And all of them are in a relationship with one of the brothers, which is strange. Do they work
Right.
there? Or are they in relationships? Why are they in relationships with someone they're supposedly working with? It's just, it didn't feel right. And she, starts to panic. She formed a connection with another young woman there, Mary Doe. And once they started talking, comparing notes, they just realized that they were lied to, that they were brought over here for some other purpose than what they thought, and they just wanted to leave. And she's, communicating with her parents, like, I'm just going to sneak out of here. She communicated with a friend who was a Marine sergeant. And so, like the brave serviceman that he is, she just wanted to sneak out. But he had been trained. He knows he has an obligation to report human trafficking, and
Right.
that, he's not going to leave her to try and figure this out on her own. He did the right thing. He made a report to the U.S. Embassy. And so that initiated a raid. And so, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but eventually the different Tate properties were raided.
Right.
The women were rescued, and Jane Doe and Mary Doe just did the right thing, right? They were taken into custody by law enforcement, and they did the right thing, and they cooperated, and they told the truth of what they saw and witnessed and experienced. I just want to pause there and just emphasize a few things. Jane Doe did not go to the media and make accusations. I see a lot of people, saying, oh, this is Me Too gone wrong, or this is false accusations for fame, for clout, for money.
Right.
So I just want to take a minute and emphasize she did not go to the media and make claims about a famous person. She was rescued by law enforcement and cooperated with them. That was
Right.
the right thing to do. Should she have refused to cooperate?
Mhm.
She felt that she was in danger and that other women might be in danger. She wasn't even
Mhm.
sure what was going on. She
Right.
just gave an honest account of what she saw. The other thing is she didn't walk into a police station to make an account, to make a report, although she has every right to do so.
Right.
Again, she didn't do that. Someone else called law enforcement and she cooperated. But why all of that matters is she is being sued. Her parents are being sued. That Marine sergeant was sued. Mary Doe is sued. The Tate brothers and their attorneys sued all of these people, claiming that the entire Romanian case, which the original indictment included 7 victims, not just Jane Doe, not just
Mhm.
Mary Doe, 7 victims, but they claimed that that entire case is, should be laid on the shoulders at the feet of Jane Doe. It's all her fault that she somehow can control police investigations, and that it was all lies. And so she has been fighting for her life since then. And it wasn't just a lawsuit. She is, also faced unbelievable online harassment from the
Yeah.
Tate brothers fan base, which is massive.
Mhm.
She received deluge of threats, including death threats, so that she had to shut down all her social media. She's been living in hiding since this happened in 2022.
Wow.
It's 2026. She truly lives in hiding, constantly worried that one of the crazed Tate fans or someone in this network is trying to find her. And she doesn't know what would happen. Is she going to be further harassed, doxxed, smeared, lied about, or even harmed? She doesn't know. She's terrified, and she hasn't been able to move on with her life. I mean, it's horrifying, truly. And to put this pressure on her parents too, who did nothing wrong, is just, in my opinion, did nothing wrong, is just, it's really unbelievable. She, has been defending that lawsuit and filed a countersuit and alleges that this was all a witness intimidation campaign, that,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know, she's her, all the things that they're claiming about her are not true, and they're just being used to hurt her. And the suing of her parents was used to put leverage on her and to hurt her. So it's been an unbelievable battle. I'll pause there. There's a lot more to tell, but
Right.
any questions from you, Shannon?
Yes, well, because this was one of the most extraordinary elements of this story. This is when Candace Owens stepped in, and this was when Candace Owens was exposed to the extent that I will never trust her again as a journalist, because the way that Candace Owens twisted this, manipulated the story, and then doxed this victim, Jane Doe, essentially exposing her, allowing the Tates to completely misrepresent what had happened there. Can you explain Candace's position, what she fed to her audience, which you talk about confusion, massive confusion on this entire case with, a separate language, a different country in Romania. Then you have Candace Owens swooping in for whatever reason, right? I mean, she can report on a million different topics. There are a million different stories that are salacious. In fact, she could have reported on this. It's salacious enough. She could have reported on behalf of the victims instead of the Tates, right? But she decided to not only side with the Tates, but lie for them and manipulate and even attack this victim as well. This is an extraordinary story. Can you just explain how Candace lied about who she was and what her agendas were, and even went back into her very troubling past where she was a victim and a victim of abuse, because this is where people get very confused, and I think it's important.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't speak to what was going on behind the scenes with Candace. What her motives were, her intentions were, I don't know. But what I found alarming and distressing about this, and certainly what Jane Doe found distressing, is, she titled an episode of her show, something like Deep Dive into, the accusers of Andrew Tate, but her only source material was Andrew and Tristan Tate's civil complaint. So that's just not a deep dive. Like you said, she could have covered this, but even from both sides, Jane Doe, her identity was protected in Romania, as we do here in America for sex crime victims. If you're going through a criminal case as a sex crime victim, by law in all states, your identity is protected. But her real name was used by Candace Owens, who has a massive platform. And she read from the complaint, which used the real name, which I ended up getting a pseudonym, but it originally was filed with a real name, and so that was how Candace Owens was able to use that. But now to a much larger audience. It's bad enough that it was filed on the public docket in Florida with a real name, but it's something else when someone of that level, like Candace, now is saying her name to all of her followers. That's broadcasting it to a whole nother level. And again, only just her deep dive, and she's literally just reading. She's holding this complaint and just reading from it. And there's some really disturbing aspects of that. Jane Doe, was a victim as a child, as it's not surprising. Like we talked about before, that part of the strategy of traffickers and pimps is to identify vulnerable victims.
Right.
Often their victims have a troubled past. That's part of
Mhm.
what makes them vulnerable to this manipulation, to this abuse. And so unfortunately, Jane Doe experienced the horror of all horrors, which is child sexual abuse. When she was only 15, her yoga instructor, someone who was she was in his care. He was giving yoga classes to high school students. Parents were trusting this man with their children to help them, and he was preying on them. That man is in jail. He was convicted for abusing not just Jane Doe, but another child. And again, Jane Doe did not report this abuse. Her parents were worried for her because it seems like he's coming around too much for a yoga instructor,
Right.
hires a private detective who observes and captures on camera the abuse, and this gets turned over to the police, and then the police investigate. So again, this isn't Jane Doe, a child, making any kind of false accusation, but the way that the Tate brothers describe this abuse in their complaint is they say they were dating and Jane Doe lied about her age, and they call this man, this convicted sex criminal of children, a victim of Jane
Oh my.
Doe. They name him as one of her victims, and they anonymized his name in the complaint. They call him Jail John, and
No.
but used her real name when under Florida law, her child, as a child victim, that was protected. That was
Right.
not known. People didn't know she experienced that child sexual abuse until the Tate brothers broadcasted it, but spinned her as the predator. And
Unbelievable. At 15, she's the predator of a 56-year-old dirtbag scum in the state of Florida. And then Candace Owens outed her as well. Candace Owens, in her reporting, also anonymized the 56-year-old sexual predator who is convicted of these crimes and outed the victim, a 15-year-old girl, now probably in her 20s, who is one of the lead, who provided information to Romanian officials about what was happening in the Tate compound, and she had to have known she was doing it. This is where I was, the level of sophisticated manipulation necessitated knowledge, right? Like, there's no way that Candace doesn't know this and names the child victim while anonymizing the 56-year-old convicted sexual predator in that expose on the Tate victims, which was used. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, and what's even stranger about it, again, I don't know, but I'm just talk about what happened. Candace Owens said Jane Doe's real name over 100 times
Oh my
in
word.
that episode. Yet, like you mentioned, the sex predator was beeped out. But what's interesting is originally she was saying the real name of this predator, and then they went before the episode was released. She beeps out, uses like a beep out effect to beep out his name. So why did that happen?
Right.
And like I said, originally when the Tate brothers complaint was filed, both names were used, but then they filed an amended complaint anonymizing his name to Jail John, but not Jane Doe's name. And what's interesting about that is because Jane Doe's identity was protected by law, if you don't know the predator's name, you can't look up the case. But if you know the predator's name, you could look up the case and see for yourself the real facts, which are that he's the predator. But by anonymizing his name, you now can't look up the case. It's just, because you can't search the victim's name because that was anonymized. So they were able to simultaneously cast her as the predator of this child abuse and make it impossible for anyone to look further and see if that's even true. It was unbelievably damaging to Jane Doe, as she alleges in her complaint,
and purposeful, in my opinion. You're her attorney, and I can understand being you have to be safe with that. But there's no way, to my knowledge, that an experienced broadcaster and reporter like Candace Owens would not know what she was doing. And this guy, by the way, there were multiple victims, not just Jane Doe. Yeah. This guy was a serial predator that was protected by Candace Owens as she laundered the dark character of Andrew and Tristan Tate and destroyed a young girl, exposed her to death threats, attacks, harassment, to the point where this young girl is living in hiding. She cannot live her life. She has not been able to live her life since she did the right thing, helped another girl escape from the Tate compound, and gave the authorities information about what she saw. That's all she did. That's all she did. And yet they continue to say she's doing it for money and power. She has no money. She has no power. It's just a complete fraud. It's completely fabricated. Yet she's the one. This is the area that every other conservative right-wing outlet that continues to try to launder their character and lie to their audiences about what these guys did and who these guys are doing to this day. Now, thankfully, there are many, many fewer supporters of the Tates. In fact, I think there was supposed to be a rally yesterday. There were 2 people. 2 people at the rally. Donald Trump can't even touch this. The Trump machine and MAGA can't touch this because these guys are being exposed. Candace Owens is silent. Tucker Carlson is silent. And they were very influential and instrumental in confusing everyone about this case. And I'm just glad that the truth is coming out. Dani, what is the status right now regarding Jane Doe? She is not backing down. Well, before you answer that, where do they get all these resources? I mean, they're rich, I guess. But even rich people they are suing everyone. You mentioned the Marine, Jane Doe, Mary Joe, their parents, their friends. They're suing Murdered by Crayons. They're suing Nathan Living. Have they sued you yet? Are they suing attorneys? I mean, go ahead.
I'm being sued by someone in the Tate brothers' attorney represent another man who is suing me and Jane Doe, and that complaint was Exhibit A to the Tate brothers' complaint. So it's all related.
Crazy.
It's really disturbing.
I keep trying to get them to sue me. I purposely call them rapists, pedophiles, the Tate Pimps. I mean, I on the record on my Twitter account, and I'm like, come at me, boys. Let's go. Let's go. They won't sue me.
It's
I don't know.
interesting. Well, it's interesting. You're not, you have courage, and there's a couple other people have kind of said similar things. Lauren Southern, who
Yeah.
also reported being victimized by Andrew Tate, has said, "Sue me. Why
Wow.
haven't you sued me?" And it's interesting that those who are sued seem to be the most vulnerable, those that don't have resources, that may not be able to fight back, and they're the ones they sue, not
Mhm.
maybe somebody who would have a better chance of fighting back effectively. So it's really crazy. But let's talk about like the status. And there's a couple things I just want to point out for people
Okay.
who have doubts and who are confused. So the first thing I want everyone to understand, especially in light of this UK extradition, is that for women in around 2014, 2015, way before. So think about the years 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
Andrew Tate was not famous. He was
Mhm.
a nobody. He was not a celebrity. You would not know who he was. He hadn't even made his brief appearance on Big Brother, right? Because
Right.
that was, I
Okay.
think, in 2016.
Yeah.
So in 2014, 2015, when he was just a regular guy, a regular person, 3 or 4 women went to authorities and reported that they were choked and sexually assaulted by Andrew Tate. And some of them were alleging this abuse occurred in the context of the webcam pornography business he was involved in. So that was their allegations in 2014, 2015, before he was famous. And that investigation and prosecution started in 2016. And, this whole Tate saga may be one of the historic case studies of systemic failures across multiple countries that has ever been seen. So
Right.
that investigation just languished, literally sat open for 3 years. The victims are just wondering what's going on with this, and they don't get alerted that the case is they're not going to prosecute. Case closed in 2019. So this
Mm.
for years it just sat there. Then they're told they're not going to prosecute.
Wow.
Now we find out that there's been an internal investigation, multiple police officers involved in that are being investigated, and that investigation's being reopened for mishandling.
What?
The
What?
UK is admitting it was mishandled and is now being reinvestigated. These women had to sit back now for 10 years and watch someone who abused them become one of the most famous and influential men of all time. And now all these other women have come forward, which could have been prevented from ever being victims had that initial police investigation can be taken seriously and done the right way. It's just astounding. So those women, that investigation is open, but there is now multiple investigations involving 7 other women in the UK. So this is 7 other women, not
Oh,
related to the original 4 women, and their allegations go back to 2010 to 2017 and involve even allegations of CSAM or child pornography.
oh
So
my.
those are the charges that the Tate brothers are being held now for, pending extradition. So those are very historic. And another interesting aspect of this, and I think you have a question, I'll
Yeah.
turn to you, but is that those women in 2014, 2015 reported being choked, violently choked. The women whose allegations go back to 2010, 2017 report being choked. The women in Romania report being choked.
Mm.
Lauren Southern reported being choked. None of those women knew each other. Some of them didn't speak the same languages. They were far apart in time. They didn't know about those allegations at the time,
Right.
weren't public, or were reporting the same thing.
Mhm.
That is highly corroborative evidence where you have testimony reporting a similar pattern of behavior by this predator when these victims had no way of knowing, each other's testimony. That's
Right.
very powerful.
Right. Spanning 2 continents, 3 languages over a long period of time. And again, you mentioned just the historic mishandling of this case, even when he was an unknown, which goes back to my theory that in some way these guys were some type of asset. They were some, the famous statement by Alexander Acosta, the attorney general in the state of Florida, that was notorious for giving Jeffrey Epstein that sweetheart deal, said, well, he was told that Epstein was owned by intelligence, right? That he was an asset. This is why I believe this Tate story is so important for people to hold on to and understand. We're talking to an amazing attorney and advocate, Dani Pinter. You can follow her on Twitter. Her handle is at Dani B. Pinter on Twitter. Her organization is endsexualexploitation.org. Dani, how many victims, how many accusations, how many charges, criminal and civil? We're talking the United States of America, the UK, and Romania at this point. But if you can just help the audience understand the largesse, like how big this investigation is and how many victims there are, because one of the main sources of deceit that is being pushed out by the Tate brothers is that there aren't any victims. Show me a victim, he says. There aren't any victims. So where are the victims? This is what he repeats even to this day, and his attorney repeats, and in his the people protecting him repeat. Can you speak to how many victims there are allegedly? How many investigations, both criminal and civil, just so people can understand the scope of this story?
Yes. So in Romania, there's over 35 victims alone, just in the Romanian criminal investigation. So there's and that involves two minors.
Oh my word.
So an alleged 15-year-old. Again, that 15-year-old alleged victim gave testimony against Andrew Tate. Like you said, there's a lot of talking points that there's no victims, or that the victims are saying they're not victims, which I'll just address quickly. There are some women who are saying they're not victims, that everything was consensual with them even while they've been listed as victims. That's not uncommon, happens here in America as well, that some women who are still not identifying as victims would be treated as victims anyway, because the
Right.
elements of the crime were met. But of those over 35 alleged victims, many of them gave testimony against the Tate brothers and provided testimony and cooperated with law enforcement in Romania. So that's over 35 victims, including two minors in Romania. And then we have the 7 victims that have to do with the charges he's currently being held for, the 4 victims who are in a civil suit in the UK and waiting to see if the reinvestigation will move to prosecution phase. Then we have Bree Stern, who made allegations here in the United States. I think she is suing Andrew Tate civilly. Lauren Southern, who is from Canada, I'm not sure where she lives now. She gave testimony, and I'm sure, I don't know if she's cooperated with authorities or not. I guess we can ask her. But she also, provided testimony, has made allegations against Andrew Tate.
Right. And I would love to have Lauren Southern on, and also Bree, if they want platforms, if they want support. I don't know if you are in contact with them, Dani, but if they ever want to tell their stories, I would be happy to host them here on the show, 100%. Now I have here, I get this a lot. Ready? Here's what Futurez on my chat on Rumble has to say, that this is not worth my time. This isn't worth even discussing, despite the fact that no one else is really looking into this case or doing a deep dive. He says, this case seems very convoluted to me. I thought we are to believe that people are innocent until proven guilty after seeing all the facts in a court of law, right? But that's not happening here. But you're allowed an opinion. How would you respond to someone like Futurez, who doesn't think this matters and who believes that there's no point in covering this?
Well, I agree that the Tate brothers are treated in the legal system as innocent until proven guilty. They should be. I hope they get all of their rights respected and due process. That protects all of us. We should all want that in the system to function that way. They do have that. What's interesting and important about this case is we talked about that they weren't being prosecuted, that the victims also have rights, and that if you come forward and report something happens to you, you shouldn't then face a lawsuit and be harassed and threatened with bankruptcy, because that means you'll never come forward. That hurts all of us. people like Epstein and massive traffickers and exploiters rely on complacency from the public. They rely on their ability to bully and silence victims so that they continue harming and exploiting people, including children. So all of us should care that those who are accused have due process, but those who are victims can have the justice system work for them as well, that they have a right to be their free speech to be protected and for crimes to be prosecuted.
No, absolutely, I agree with you. And that was the whole issue with the Tates, was that we weren't being able to move forward towards criminal cases and prosecution because these guys were bullying, intimidating, misrepresenting, lying all of the victims, and attempting to evade ever having to face charges, which is why they asked President Donald Trump to send Richard Grenell, his special envoy, to Munich to strong arm Romanian officials and allow them to leave, right? They were trying to avoid any type of criminal prosecution. Many are saying that we cannot let the Tate brothers be extradited to the UK because they're Americans, Dani. And as Americans, they shouldn't have to face any charges, no criminal charges whatsoever. We just assume they're innocent and block the Romanian officials and criminal justice system and the UK officials and criminal justice system from prosecuting and bringing this evidence to light. And see, that's where your argument falls down, Futurez. The Tate brothers don't want their day in court. They don't want to present their evidence. Their attorney doesn't want them to present their evidence. They want to use lies and deceit. They want to use a power cartel, a media cartel behind them to never face any of these charges. And that's what we're fighting against, right? Because if we allow the Tate brothers to get away with this, we're going to get more Tate brothers. In the same way that we allowed Jeffrey Epstein to get away with what he did, we allowed them to suppress the Epstein files. We are allowing them to protect these cartels. And the longer we do that, the worse they get, right? So, what would you say to those who say, well, they cannot be extradited because they're Americans?
Well, that's just not how the system works. Also, while the Tate brothers are Americans, they're also UK citizens. They grew up in the UK. They left America when they were young children and then chose to live their adult lives in the UK and then Romania. They did not choose to come to America and live here. They have not been a part of American society since they were very young children. And we have these reciprocal agreements for a reason. We want the UK to respect our extradition requests. If a terrible criminal who has harmed American citizens flees to the UK, we better believe the UK is going to hand them right back to us. And so we have to have that relationship of mutual respect so that we can protect both of our countries.
All right. Dani Pinter, thank you so much for everything that you have done. Have we hit every angle that we needed to hit today, or is there something that I've missed? Is there a question that I haven't asked you that I'm looking through my notes to see if there's anything that I missed here? Because I did have a lot of questions for you. I want to let you go in just a moment, but anything else that you think that people should know about in terms of understanding the case of Andrew and Tristan Tate and the scope and impact of it?
Yeah, I guess, my last thought is just there's a lot of messaging that the Tates are being persecuted or prosecuted for their speech, for their political views. And I just want to point out that none of the charges relate to speech or political views. The charges are rape, sex trafficking, assault, child pornography charges. And that, if anything, they've escaped prosecution. Like I mentioned before, they were reported for these crimes before they were famous, and their fame seems to have protected them. So I have not seen evidence of free speech or political views being the reason behind these crimes, and I think that's unsupported. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Absolutely. Do you find it interesting that the Tates have hired the firm of Roy Black, the deceased attorney who negotiated the sweetheart deal for Jeffrey Epstein back in the day? They have now hired that firm to represent them. Anything there from your perspective?
Just interesting optics.
Interesting optics for sure. Lastly, there was a little confusion about the charges in relation to child pornography. I didn't use the term child pornography because it was interesting the way that they worded the charges, but can you explain to the audience what those charges are, what you know about those charges? Because this is something new. I'm not surprised, but it is something that we have not seen yet in some of the charges. Any insight into that?
So I haven't seen the detailed allegations yet. I think those are due from the UK within 60 days. So we'll
Okay.
get more information in that time. But it says I think it's been reported in CNN and other news outlets that there was 19 charges related to indecent sexual images of children. I think that's the British phrasing for child pornography that we use
Okay.
here. My understanding is it's the same crime,
Okay.
just different language.
And 19 charges doesn't mean 19 images. 19 charges means charges of perhaps hundreds or thousands of images, right? Like that.
Well, we don't know. It could
Right.
be each count is one image or video, or it could be, and it wasn't clear to me either if this was possession or this was production
Mhm.
of those images. So we need to get more information about that.
Very interesting. What do you think the timeline is for extradition? Do you think this is going to happen? And if it does, do you think it will happen quickly?
Well, just for context, we routinely agree to these requests. Only one extradition request from the UK has been denied in like the last 20 years. So I
Okay.
think it's a high likelihood that extradition would be granted, but we'll see what the judge says. And then ultimately it's at the discretion of the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. So my understanding of the timeline is that the UK has 60 days to provide all the evidence, right? Right now, it was a very quick arrest type warrant, probable
Mhm.
cause affidavit.
Right.
And so now they're going to have to provide the court with the whole file of evidence they want to present to support the extradition. And then the judge's role is just to look at the evidence of the crimes, look at the extradition treaty, and see if all of the elements of that extradition treaty apply, that it's the same kind of crimes we would prosecute for here. In other words, it's not some kind of crime that would be unconstitutional here in the United States, that the treaty applies. And if the judge rules that, then it will go to Secretary of State, who will just thumbs up, thumbs down.
Okay.
I think that this will be a matter of months at least. I think this will probably move quickly through the court, but the Tate brothers have the right to various appeals. So
Yeah,
we'll
of
see
course.
if that slows things down, because it could be as short as 3 to 6 months, or this could go on for two
Right.
years.
I have to be honest. I am really curious about their resources. I'm very curious about their resources, how they can engage and conduct so much lawfare, suing literally everyone for everything at every time, appeal after appeal after appeal. Like, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. We're going to keep an eye on this case. Dani, you're amazing. You are an amazing advocate. I appreciate you. This is not the first time Dani's been on the show, but she has continued to be a very consistent and brilliant advocate for some of these victims. How can people support you and follow you?
Yes, please come to our website, nsexualexploitation.com, and check us out on Twitter. And thank you so much for having me, Shannon.
Oh, of course. Anytime, anytime. Dani Pinter. Follow her on Twitter, Dani B. Pinter. All right. You keep up that great work, okay?
Thank you.
All right. And we're going to go to a quick break and come back to close out the show. We have about 15 minutes left in the show. I so appreciate Dani Pinter and her work. She's been so consistent, so diligent, absolutely full of knowledge, and really glad that we were able to unpack this case because, as many of you mentioned, and even Dani acknowledged in our interview, uh, this case has become incredibly complicated. Precisely because of people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and the Christian right who have misrepresented this case in so many ways, but also the language barriers in terms of what happened in Romania, and just the brilliant marketing and PR deployed by the Tate Pimps and their attorneys. Right, this has been one of the most extraordinary cases and stories that I have ever covered. And I started, over 3 years ago, which is just insane. Future Ez, I'm very disappointed in you. I'm very disappointed in you. I'm going to be honest, Future Ez. I mean, there are important stories out there. Obviously, we have the Iran war. We have foreign policy. We have genocide happening in Gaza. We have the rise of the technocratic, techno-fascist police state. We have the draft incoming, it looks like, from this administration. We have a captured government, captured politicians. Like, I know we've never gotten reckoning for COVID-19 or the mass poisoning campaign, the mass vaccination campaign that harmed so many Americans. Like, there are a lot of big stories out there. I don't disagree that those stories need to be covered, and we cover them here on the Shannon Joy Show. But the one story that no one will cover, that no one wants to cover, that we've had to fight kicking and screaming to get covered, is this story of the Tate Pimps. And it's such an easy one. It's a slam dunk, Futurez, because even if they're found innocent in terms of some of these charges, which is unlikely, they're still degenerate, disgusting scumbag creeps, self-admitted pimps, pornographers, and rapists. They have, in their own words, talked about raping women and liking it and wanting to. In their own words, hundreds of hours of videos. Anyone who defends these guys is crazy. And it makes absolutely no sense, which is why it's an important story. This is why I cover it, Futurez, because no one else will. It's why I started covering it from the beginning. Same with the Epstein case, right? The Epstein case hasn't been covered. The Epstein files have been protected by both the Biden administration and the Trump administration for many, many years. Epstein was protected by the left and the right, Ken Starr and Alan Dershowitz. These are the stories that I cover, the third rail stories that the left and the right either won't cover at all, and if they do, they manipulate it as a limited hangout. This is why I covered Epstein. This is why I covered the Tates. This is why I cover COVID reckoning and the military operation, the international military operation that was the deployment of COVID-19 military protocols. This is why I cover mass and coerced vaccination, because no one will cover it. There are very few, precious few in independent media that will touch these stories. Those are the stories that I look for, Futurez. And if you don't like it, you don't have to watch the show. All right? Because these are the editorial decisions that I make. I look out on the landscape and I see the same old stories over and over and over. Left versus right, D versus R, the same old political footballs getting tossed back and forth. Meanwhile, this country is going off a cliff. And our boys and girls are about to be drafted into a war that no one wanted, that Donald Trump promised would never happen, potentially a nuclear war. Mod trend, I hate any man that beats a woman. The Tates are on camera beating women. There are hours of photographic evidence and video evidence. And yeah. Thank you, Tara Preta Wild. This is why I come back to the show. Appreciate you, Tara Preta Wild. If you like the show, guys, make sure you're smashing that thumbs up button on Rumble and YouTube and Twitter. I have seen the most suppression recently since I took up the Tate brothers again. Every time I talk about the Tate brothers, the Tate case, the fact that I believe that the Epstein network is behind the platforming of the Tate brothers and also the protection of the Tate brothers, I get severely, severely shadow banned on most of these major outlets. I love Rumble, love the team over at Rumble, but we do know Rumble gave them a massive deal, a $6 to $9 million contract to bring the Tates over to Rumble and to platform them heavily on this platform. Elon Musk shoveling $50K every other week to the Tate brothers and platforming their Twitter accounts as well. We know that Elon Musk has commented on their accounts. He has retweeted their accounts. He has been very, very supportive in, his allowance for them to use Twitter to manipulate audiences. We know that Candace Owens is behind the Tate brothers. Tragically, even though Tucker Carlson does some good things, he laundered the dark character of the Tate brothers. Like, this is a major story. It is a major story. When you look at the scope of the protection racket around these asshats, you have to know that there's something bigger there. And the fact that no one else talks about this, I mean, a lot of people are reporting on this story, but they're not even reporting it in context of what's going on with the Epstein files or the release of the Epstein files. People who fought for the release of the Epstein files are completely silent on the Tate brothers. Haven't heard anything from Tom Massey or Marjorie Taylor Greene or a lot of the people who were instrumental in forcing the Trump administration to release those files. They haven't been paying attention to it because of that protection racket within conservative Christian media outlets. They don't know. They don't know. It's huge. It's a huge story. And my journalistic instincts, I just know. I know. It's why I got on the vaccine racket. It's why I got on the COVID racket. It's why I got on the COVID cover-up racket. It's why I got on the Epstein racket, and it's why I'm on the Tate racket. Tara Preda Wild, Epstein, the Tates are small sub-corporations of a much larger criminal entity. Tara, I agree with you 100%. Hey, Swavek, good to see you on the live chat. Jake Hudson, happy birthday. I love seeing you on the live chat. Appreciate you. Hey, Jake Hudson, with a $1 tip. Appreciate you, Jake. That is awesome. And yeah, Future Ez, I'm not taking it back. I am very disappointed in you. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I've been doing this long enough, over 13 years, right? It's crazy. But I've been doing this long enough to know where the stories are. And it's usually, listen, my radar goes up when there is a protection racket from the left and the right. If the left wing and the right wing are both dedicated to suppressing a story, that is when my ears perk up. That's when my antenna goes up. And those are the stories that I will pursue. Buskman, appreciate you. Oh, you're so sweet. Let's go to a quick break. Did we take 2 breaks? Actually, I think we did. Let's go to one more quick break. And when we come back, we'll finish out the show. All caps, questions, comments. I want to know what you guys think about this reporting, what you guys think about my thesis that the Tate network is the Epstein network and that both networks are controlled and run by a much larger, darker entity, global, worldwide. That's my position. Would love to hear your thoughts on that as well. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment right here on The Shannon Joy Show.
I never planned to start a skincare company. I was just trying to help my family. We were dealing with skin issues that conventional products simply were not fixing. And the more I researched, the more I questioned what was actually in the products we were using every single day. As a mom, I couldn't ignore it, and I became deeply concerned about our constant exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals, especially in products we were putting on our skin and on our children. So I started making my own. That's how North Idaho Tallow began. Today, I handcraft every product myself in North Idaho using thoughtfully chosen ingredients like grass-fed tallow, jojoba oil, and pure essential oils. You will never find synthetic fragrance oils in any of my products. Everything is made in small batches, filled by hand, carefully weighed, because my standard is simple. If I wouldn't use it on my own family, I will not sell it to yours. What started as a way to care for my family has grown into something I'm incredibly proud to share with yours. This is North Idaho Tallow. Traditional ingredients, thoughtfully made, no compromises.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Shannon Joy Show. So thankful for my sponsors over at North Idaho Tallow. Love their products. Love, love, love. Cannot tell you how much I love their products. Use them every single day. You get big discounts when you go to idahotallow.com/joy, idahotallow.com/JOY for North Idaho Tallow, and big discounts. And also you'll get that unbelievable Shannon Joy bundle of the soap, the scrub, and the soothing balm. Your skin will be hydrated all day long. No need to reapply. I'm obsessed with these products. $29 plus free shipping when you go to idahotallow.com/joy. That is idahotallow.com/joy. As we close out the show, Buskman, I see you here. Future Ez, that's okay, Shannon. I'm not disappointed in in you. You're a good sport, Future Ez. You are a good sport. Be my Valentine with a comment. Oh, I'm sorry, Green Tea 369 with this comment. I've never dug into the Tates before because I found them to be simply disgusting individuals. After hearing Dani, it's clear it's much larger. Thank you so much, Green Tea 369, because that's exactly why I pursued this story. They are horrifying. They are degenerates. They are disgusting. They are horrifying. The pornography, the abuse, their statements in their own words. It's salacious. It's dirty. I didn't want to play their videos years ago when we decided to run them on the Shannon Joy Show, because I don't even want to be aligned with that. I don't want to be adjacent to that. But again, I was looking out onto the horizon and there was no coverage whatsoever on what these guys had done and who their true characters were. And that was in the height of the character laundering campaign, when they went on Candace Owens' show and they went on Tucker Carlson's platform. In fact, Tucker Carlson's first interview after becoming independent and platforming independently on X was with Andrew Tate. What's that all about? That's not a coincidence to me in my mind. And so I felt like I had an obligation actually to report on this, simply because no one else has. And I appreciate that feedback from you, Green Tea 369. Buskman, pray for me. My ID has been hacked. Oh no, you're fighting an invisible financial criminal as we speak. We will be praying for you, Buskman. Make sure you guys are following Buskman on Rumble. He has a show that he does weekly, and it's awesome. LT Oracle of Truth. Ooh, the bundle is a great bargain. I want to get another. Can I get one more Shannon, or more than one Shannon Joy bundle? Go for it. LT Oracle of Truth. Stock up. The bundle is amazing. It's the soap, which is moisturizing in and of itself. The scrub is unbelievable. You apply it in the shower, it creates a barrier. Like the water will bead off of your skin after you apply that scrub. You don't need a ton of it, just a little bit. And then the balm is the same way. After I shower, you use just a little bit. A quarter size amount of the balm is actually enough for your entire body. You put it on when your skin is a little bit wet, and that helps distribute it. And you're done. You're done for the day. You don't have to re-moisturize or reapply or do this or that. And I've noticed that my skin is just more hydrated in general all day long the more that I use it. So these products are unbelievable. That is idahotallow.com/joy. And yes, go scoop up those bundles, LT Oracle of Truth, while they last. Because when people figure out how good this stuff is, they're going to want more and more. And I think that it will be for a limited time. Tara Pretta Wild, Tucker Carlson. This is precisely how we know that he's part of the club that we're not in. When it really matters, he promotes Tates. That's been my story. Tucker Carlson does such good stuff sometimes. And then he does such crazy stuff other times. And then when it really matters, like in March of 2020, when Donald Trump was actually considering not locking down and not issuing the nationwide lockdown orders, Tucker Carlson gets into his car, drives to Mar-a-Lago, and spends 2 or 3 hours with Donald Trump, convincing him to lock us down because Tucker Carlson's wife said that he should do it. That is a true story in Tucker Carlson's own words that he told in the aftermath of the COVID-19 lockdowns, right? So he gets it so disastrously wrong when it really matters. And I'm not going to apply any type of intent. I don't know what drives him. I don't know what he knows or why he chooses to cover the stories that he chooses. I don't know how much he depends on his producers, if they withhold information from him and pitch him stories that are just dumb stories. I don't know. I don't know about his operation. But I just know that at least from my perspective, I like him. He does some really great work sometimes, but everything he does, I take with a grain of salt. And really, we should be discerning all outlets, all independent media outlets, mine included, right? You guys hold me to account very often. You guys hold me to a level of consistency and in reporting that I actually really appreciate. I am very plugged into all of you, your opinions, your thoughts, your ideas, the stories that you want covered. And of course, the stories you don't think need to be covered, future us. But I'm plugged into you guys on that. And I would expect that this brilliant, discerning, independent, not left, not right audience would hold me accountable as well. And so this is what we have to do in the 21st century, with all of the media headlines on the internet. Meanwhile, actually, oh my gosh, Wine Press News just found this Substack with a banger of a story exposing independent media outlets as the left and the right are losing their power and the grip they have over the narrative here in the US. What's the big story? No one trusts anyone anymore. No one trusts the left-wing news media. No one trusts the right-wing news media because they both lie all the time. No one trusts Republicans or Democrats because they all lie all the time, like 99% of them. No one in America trusts their institutions. We don't trust our own doctors. We don't trust hospitals. We don't trust financial institutions. We don't trust anyone. It's beautiful. This is a great thing. Americans need to be more suspicious and critical of people who occupy positions of power. But as that happens, the people who control things understand that. And so they want to set up new independents, right? Independent outlets like mine, but I really am independent, to control the narrative and engage in limited hangouts. And so this story by Wine Press, I pushed it out yesterday on my Twitter account. You can follow me at Shannon Joy Radio on Twitter. Was, like I said, a banger. And I'm going to continue to keep an eye on what Wine Press News has to say because they're pretty good. And I will link it in the show notes of tomorrow's show because it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Well, listen, bye-bye. This is interesting. I love this. You should check out that Polly lady, and she can tell you about all of them, even Ian Carroll. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Polly says that I am controlled opposition and that I am compromised somehow. Like she came after me a couple of years ago. She's a little cuckoo. I did a deep dive on that one. And I mean, it's hard. Listen, discerning right now, it's hard. Everyone's giving everyone else a side eye. No one trusts anyone. And I'm down for it. I think it's great. I don't think any of you should trust me anyway. You should trust, listen, you know them by their fruit, right? Those of you who watch the Shannon Joy Show, you have been with me for over 13 years, almost 14 years. And those of you who have been consistent in terms of audience, you know that I'm pretty consistent in everything. I've been saying pretty much the same thing that I've been saying since I launched the show out of a double wide trailer in a cornfield 13 years ago. And so, I think it's incumbent on, the viewer or the listener to hold us to account, hold us to standards. And if I betray your standards, if you think that somehow I'm not being a straight shooter, then, that I would encourage you to leave, right? And if I ever, go sideways, I would encourage you all to leave because no one is the same all the time. People who are like great, like everything is always fluid, and people who are doing a really great job, something can happen in their life and then they have life changes and all of a sudden they're not reporting in the same way that they used to. Like we've got to be nimble. We've got to move fast. And, when you identify, like when I identified what Candace Owens did with that victim of the Tates and how she very strategically lied to her audience and also committed abuse against that victim while protecting a pedophile in a very, very confusing way for our audience, I'm like, boom, that woman can never be trusted ever again. Ever. Suavek, Shannon, I thought you were part of a secret military program. I think the evidence is that my audience is very, very small and I don't have any money, right? Like that's usually, I'm quite comfortable, but I'm just not motivated by money. And that's usually, I think, that's usually what I think can be like an indicator, but who knows? LT Oracle of Truth, in all caps, Shannon, Nostradamus told me that they quit watching you after you went to Utah after Charlie Kirk's death. Interesting. I didn't go to Utah because of Charlie Kirk. I went to Utah because of Dr. Kirk Moore, who was facing 30 years in prison for distributing fake vaccine cards, protecting his patients. And that's interesting. That's really interesting. Listen, opportunities open up and I'll go anywhere, anytime. I'm not plugged into any real organization and I'm independent. So I'll leave that up to all of your, all of you to discern, but I know who I am. That's interesting, LT. Chronozone 777. So Tucker, Alex Jones, and Candace all hate women. I don't know. I think there are different levels of support for the Tate brothers. Like Candace has had them on multiple times. Like she has doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on covering up for the Tates. So I think she's the worst of all of them. Tucker might have, maybe there was a side deal and they're like, hey, Tucker, we'll heavily platform you and promote you on Twitter. But your first interview has to be with these degenerates as part of a larger operation. Who knows? And maybe Tucker didn't even know that, maybe his producers didn't even tell him about the truth about the Tate brothers. I know a lot of people like Green Tea 369 who said, listen, I never even paid attention to the Tate brothers because I thought this, and this. Like a lot of people were there as well. So it's just, it's hard. Mod Trend. I'm glad I found someone who has known the truth about Trump for years. I just started not trusting him after COVID. Yes. My career has been severely thwarted because I decided not to get on the Trump train in 2015, the year that he came down the golden escalator, like day one. And I was a conservative talk radio host at the time, like a fledgling, little baby conservative talk radio host. And yeah, that shut down my career fast, but I'm glad. I like being small. I like being independent. I like never going to Washington, D.C. I don't go to any of these things, these meetings. I just don't. Who else do we have here? Ooh, Terra Preta Wild. Gladio, COINTELPRO, etc. are very, very busy in alt media and social media, sowing chaos and dissension everywhere. Be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. That's scriptural. Thank you, Tara. That is Old Testament scripture. And I believe Jesus Christ as well. So thank you for that. Yeah, just use discernment. The way I do it is really like I'm in my Bible every single day. It's part of my morning routine. I read the Bible chronologically from Genesis to the book of Revelations. I've done it over and over. And lots of prayer. Devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy keeps me very honest. He is definitely not intelligence, but he's definitely my handler. He doesn't work for the CIA, but devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy is 100% my handler. He keeps me on the straight and narrow and makes me laugh all of the time and makes it, honestly, this job is so intense and like the themes are so big, sometimes so scary and disastrous. And I was watching Alex Jones's feed and Mike Adams, the health ranger. Mike Adams is like, get out of the cities. Martial law is coming. These big disasters are coming. Alex Jones is talking about the draft and World War III and nuclear bombs. And Michael Yon is out there saying the same thing. And it's just all too much. It's just too much. So I just try to, go to work every day, figure out what's really going on. And then I go home and I forget about it. And devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy is really good. Like he just doesn't care. He's Scottish. He doesn't think anything's ever going to happen. He's just like, yeah, after 13, we've been married for almost 24 years. We've been together for over 30 years. We have 3 kids together. He knows me. He knows what I do. He is like an amazing supporter, but he doesn't take me very seriously. He challenges me. And he's always like, listen, when the disaster happens, it's going to happen. Like we don't need to worry about it every day. Like, and I do think that bad things are going to be coming, but I never think they're as bad as everyone thinks they're going to be. I know that's kind of convoluted, but anyway, Buskman, all caps. And yeah, he is truly devastatingly handsome. I am super lucky. And we all know that you're straight, Buskman. Shannon interviews the Tate brothers. First question. So how long have you guys been slime balls? They would never come on my show. Ever. It won't happen. Bye-bye, Shannon. I will say that Polly Wants a Cracker blocked me on BitChute. That's hilarious. Yeah, there are some outlets out there that are like, everyone is controlled opposition, except for me, right? I'm the only one that isn't controlled opposition. And so there are a few accounts out there that are like that, and I kind of write them off as well. I gotta go. I've got to go. I'm way too late. An hour and 42 minutes. Not good. We need to end the show, guys. You guys have been great today. Appreciate all of you. If you're watching right now on Rumble and you like the show, please smash that thumbs up button right now. say hello on the live chat, and follow the Shannon Joy Show. This is how we boost up that algorithm and increase the platform and the exposure of this independent show, truly independent. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you for being with me today. Twitter, you guys are amazing. Leave a comment, retweet, share. Everyone on Facebook, I appreciate you. And of course on Substack as well. You guys are great. Everyone on the live chat, thank you for all of your comments and your questions. We will be back tomorrow. The amazing Sasha Latapova will be with us in the studio tomorrow for a full hour. The Fauci Diaries, big release of the Fauci Diaries by Rand Paul, telling us, well, what we all knew about Anthony Fauci for a very long time. He's a slime ball. He's a degenerate. He is a grotesque human being who has no problem with maiming and killing millions of Americans in the pursuit of power and his own power and fame. And so we know all of that. Sasha Latapova is out there. She's crying foul. She's saying, listen, this Fauci story is much ado about nothing. He's a red herring. He's a distraction. He has been villain casted so that everyone casts their attention on what's going down with Fauci and his diaries when we're ignoring the larger apparatus behind Anthony Fauci and Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump and Joe Biden and both political parties, right? And behind the Epstein network and largely the Tate network as well. Again, we've got to get through these actors, these political actors, in order to get to the real truth. And we're going to talk about that with Sasha Latapova tomorrow on the SJ Show. So make sure you set your alarms for 12:20-ish p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.